I just wanted to give a quick recap of the White House Creator Economy Conference that happened yesterday. I'm not going to have a lot of time to edit this, so I'm just going to kind of go off the top of my dome from everything that I remembered. But it was an awesome day, first of all, and they invited a lot of great people there, a lot of people who have known the industry for over a decade, a lot of people who are reasonably new but have made a big impact. So it was around 7 a.m., I would say, when I woke up and I checked the group thread. We had a group thread going on both WhatsApp and LinkedIn with everyone we knew that was invited. So probably like 35 people of the 100 that were there. And people were already sharing around that Joe Biden was confirmed that he was going to be there through deadline. And so naturally, we all got nervous and excited. We had no clue going into the conference who was going to show up, what was going to be we knew the theme, but like what was going to be the thrust of what we were doing. So I decided to get there super early. So I got ready early, showed up about an hour early. And the second that we got through security, got our passes, were led upstairs, the first thing I did was throw my folder that they gave us, one of these White House folders with the itinerary and everything. I threw it down on a seat right near the front, right next to Jamie Goodfried, and later Shira Lazar ended up sitting on the other side, so I was surrounded by friends. It was awesome. Then we kind of had some time to walk around. There were people going in and out of the rooms, and they were shockingly helpful, right? They were able to come up and say like one of the women, now I'm forgetting her name, but she was coming out of the pandemic response room, and she was kind of telling her story about how she was a firefighter and a Navy brat, and then she ended up working at the White House. And she was telling us how there's shells that were like hidden inside of the tiles. So we went looking at those, and that was pretty cool. People started arriving. They brought out the coffee, which everyone was very grateful for. And then when we sat down and they started the panels, it started with a brief introduction. Let me look through the actual itinerary sheet so that we could see exactly what happened. But yes, Christian Tom, who was kind of the guy that was putting all this together, he was at the Tube Filter event the night before. He kind of came out and gave a little bit of a chat about what we were doing that day, talking about breakout sessions in the afternoon, so that they could hear some feedback, and having some really great speakers and guests. That was cool. The first thing that the way they did was the panel on mental health. It had Lexi Hidalgo, Kate Max, Joel Bervell, and then the domestic policy advisor, Neera Tanden, on it. This was a really great panel talking about mostly about kind of teen depression and mental health. Felt like the biggest takeaway on that, I mean, naturally, everybody that works in the social media world kind of knows that there's a major issue there. But what made it really interesting was just that it showed how thoughtful they have been within the actual White House about thinking about this, right? Like, they clearly knew what the problem was. They knew that they needed to get experts in to address it. They knew that it was a lot about kind of chasing algorithms, and mostly they wanted the message to land that they needed help on this front. We all needed help on this front, and they want to work with us to help, so that was cool. The next thing that happened was a fireside chat on AI with Gohar Khan, the creator, which was awesome. And then Dr. Arati Prabhakar, I hope I didn't get that right. She's the director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy. And I don't know if there was so much takeaways from AI, except for like, this stuff is here, it's really powerful, we need to figure out what to do with deep fakes, and we need to figure out how to ensure at least transparency on what's real and then what's AI. It was kind of like kind of all-encompassing ruminations. I really wish that we had a chance to ask her questions and kind of jump in, because I felt like a lot of it was just about the power of AI, and we're kind of like, yeah, we know, we work in the industry. Like, what I really want to get to is like actionable. What are we doing about it? And they did seem like they were thinking about it and thinking about passing some stuff, but I still feel like the EU is a little bit ahead of us in terms of actually making considerations. The next thing that was on here on the agenda was something that said remarks. So naturally, knowing that Biden was going to be there, we're like, okay, like we know what remarks means. There was slated for like 15 minutes, but it was starting really late, and they had people setting up lights. The whole press corps came in the back, and we're like, all right, this, we know what's going to happen. This is going to be like, but by the time everything got set up, it was like already into the lunch time on this. So we're like, okay, so he'll come out for 2 minutes. Joe Biden came out. Everybody naturally freaked out because it was like, even though it was announced in the trades, we didn't really know what was happening until a White House staffer came out and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'll present to you the President of the United States, President Joe Biden." And then everybody was kind of like, I thought you're supposed to stand up when the president came to the room. So if you watch it on C-SPAN, you can see me and Shira next to me like stand up, start clapping, and then realize nobody else was standing up. Then we sat down. And then as soon as he got to the podium, everyone stood up. And I'm like, they should have told us that beforehand. I felt like an idiot. But naturally, everyone's phones out. They were thrilled. Joe Biden started giving remarks. He was... I think that it's a fair assessment that he was kind of trailing off more than he used to. He was whispery, but the things he was saying were really sharp and smart. He kind of had a couple prepared remarks on a sheet of paper. Naturally, what's been written about the most from this creator economy conference is his opening joke, which was, I invited you all here because I'm looking for a job. Got a huge laugh in the room, but he got laughs throughout. Like, he's a very charming, funny guy. He put a lot of the attention on our personal responsibility and how his grandkids are watching a lot more social media than they are television, and how we have responsibility with that, which of course we all agree with. And a couple things that really stood out is he was like, about 4 months ago, I really started noticing this. And we're like, we want people to be noticing from day one. Like, every piece of data will tell you that this is one of the most powerful ways to get messaging out and all of that. So we're hoping that future administrations continue to lean into the creator economy more, especially when they have authoritative information they need to get out. Like, we do see a lot of, like, Donald Trump is doing the Aiden Ross stuff, and JD Vance is on Nelk, and we're like, there's so many equivalents that Joe, Kamala, all of them could be doing, and hopefully they're really considering this from day one. I think Kamala is a little bit more out front with social, but naturally everyone could be doing more that break out of the mold of just doing live events. He was doing a lot of self-deprecating, that he's old jokes, the whole like, hey, when I was a senator 200 years ago, ha ha ha, all of that kind of stuff. But lame duck president, he doesn't have to worry about that kind of stigma anymore, so he can kind of joke about it. After a series of prepared remarks, he's like, I want to take some questions from the creator economy folks. And immediately the press corps jumped in and started screaming questions. It was like so shocking that I think everybody in the creator economy conference part of it were like, oh my God. And we all turned around because it was just like, it was like a boom of people yelling. And then President Biden was very cool about saying, like, no, I want to hear from them. It did not silence the press corps. They just kept shouting. So they dismissed the press corps, and everybody, all of us were clapping. So we're like, cool, we want our shot, guys. But on the way out, somebody did yell out about the inflation numbers. And I feel like I got a little window into what Joe thinks about the press after no longer running for president. I think he said something to the effect of like, hey, the numbers are great. We're going to have a soft landing on inflation. Start writing about it that way. And it made me realize that like he's having this moment right now where he's saying like the press was covering a lot of the bad stuff and not a lot of the good stuff. The inflation numbers were good. So, I feel like that was like a little window into frustration with the press. After they were all dismissed, and I have it on video, I'll make sure to release it on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Phil. He was taking questions from us, but a lot of it was just kind of like exactly what you hear about Joe Biden. There was one question, and then he kind of like went off on stories of his life and all of that. He got really personal in a story about his son's death of Beau Biden. At one point, he kind of had that Uncle Ben Spider-Man moment of with great power comes great responsibility, and we know that you have great power. He didn't say those exact words. It's just me as a comic book geek. I mean, that's where my brain, he was essentially like, you guys are the ones that are getting messaging out now, so don't forget about the power you have. It was really cool, really thrilling. I did take a selfie that I turned around with him, and he posed for it, and I said, thank you, Mr. President, and he acknowledged it. So I feel like that was even better than a question. I'll make sure to post that if I got the video from someone else, but that was just like thrilling and awesome. The next was a keynote conversation. Oh, we had lunch. Lunch was great. There was no seating, so we kind of sat on the stoop. I talked to Ryan Dietert from Influential. He just exited his company for $500 million to Publicis, so it was cool to catch up with him and chatted with a bunch of other people. Lon, a tech reviewer, was there, so that was cool. The next one was a keynote conversation with Jackie Aina. Tarika Lambert was the White House representative. She was the Deputy Director of Digital Strategy. And they spent a lot of time talking about like diversity in content creation and a little bit about kind of the difficulty with hate comments and where racism definitely does exist on the internet. It was a really great talk, and naturally Jackie is like famous and been famous forever online, so it was cool to hear from her. She's also interviewed the president in the past, and that was a really great video, so she was awesome. And yeah, both opened up a lot about struggles they were having, and I feel like that was the chance for the panel to really educate us on something that was going on that they wanted us to hear, and that was fantastic. Next, and I know that that a lot of people were asking about this when they were like, hey, if you get the chance to talk to them, make sure to check this out. There's a fireside chat on fair pay from Hannah Williams, who naturally, Hannah Williams, her whole shtick online is asking people how much they make and destigmatizing payment. So that was cool. And it was Wally Adeyemo, the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, who was the White House representative on that. They crushed it. It was awesome. They were talking about kind of disparities in pay, how women and minorities are getting paid less in the digital world. And I think that my friend over at FYPM, check it out. It's an awesome website about pay transparency in the greater economy. Would be very proud of that panel. And that was another one where it felt like it was about how is the Treasury Department supporting us. He was talking about small business loans, being able to go on the Small Business Administration website and how there's support for creators, which is something me, even being in the industry all the time, did not know. So like getting that insight is killer. And I'm definitely going to go to the Small Business Administration and recommend it to people because I didn't know they had that level of support. But also just like the idea of pay transparency was very cool. Then we had breakout sessions for the next hour and a half. It was a big group. So there was, I believe that there was 5 groups of 20 that went to these breakout sessions, which naturally, when it's only an hour and a half and you've got a lot of creator economy executives who are talkers naturally, you don't get a ton of time to talk. But we all went to different rooms. This was Chatham House rules, so I can talk about what was spoken there, but I can't say who spoke about it. However, most of the things that were said there were pretty uncontroversial, right? They're things that we know are issues. There's very few social platforms and they hold way too much power. The algorithms are very opaque and careers can come and go very quickly. We need funding, we need pay transparency, we need support in terms of things like insurance and being able to access loans as creators. We also need somewhere to go when brands are being bad actors and their payment terms are plus 120 or some sort of national legislation protecting creators for things like that. So a lot was said in those rooms. And when they did the recaps afterwards, a lot was similar between the different rooms. So what we're hoping is that all that stuff really lands. But where I naturally talked about the dangers of AI because that's one of the passions that I had, so I kept bringing the conversation back, and I think I had like 2 chances to really speak, and that's really what I honed in on. Well, I did one on the dangers of AI, and then I did one little riff on the outstanding power that platforms have and how it's kind of like unregulated power, right? Like they can ban a channel without really telling you why, and they can demonetize something without really telling you why, and how there needs to be more support on that side. But as I was leaving, the one thing that I really wanted to leave behind is next time there's a congressional hearing, please call people in this room. We are here. You have our contact information. So I'm hoping that lands because, man, we really want any administration, nonpartisan, both sides. We want every administration to be smarter about these topics. I think there's a lot we can all agree on. And we just want to make sure that we're pushing through legislation that can help protect creators and help make platforms more transparent and pay more fair. So that was great. everybody went on stage and they shared what their rooms talked about, and it seemed like there was a lot of people from the White House on the communication side really listening. Then it was really thrilling for the closing remarks. Christian Tom, the director of digital strategy. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I missed one because it was not on the agenda. But Madam Press Secretary came out and then gave a talk. Awesome. She was hilarious. Somebody from the crowd was who got Joe Biden to do the Dougie when he was there. He also went on stage with her and she did it, and she was just in good humor. And again, she was talking about how we're going to be important on helping her get the messaging out there. So that was awesome. And she was just as charming as she was on TV. Super personable. Which seems like both her and Joe Biden had this thing where they became almost completely different people than you see when there's not a camera rolling on them. Like, I could tell Joe Biden was more in his element when the press was gone, and it was just like him chatting with people who were mostly a friendly audience, who were laughing along and hanging on his words. Like, that's his sweet spot, and I felt like Madam Press Secretary was the exact same way, so it was cool. The closing remarks, Christian Tom, again, the director of digital strategy, who's kind of helped put this all together, did a little bit of recapping and said that he wants to continue working with us in the creator economy on all of these important issues, which is great. Then afterwards, Palette Management did a happy hour that was awesome. I should talk about one thing in between. During lunchtime, there's like a secret gift shop at the White House, which is like internal only. Naturally, there's the external stuff, but like, I went ham at the gift shop, right? Like, they had all of these like presidential seal stuff. I got a pin. I got for my kids, they had like little activity sets that you can buy. It was super cool. So I've got videos of that up on my Instagram as well, instagram.com/PhilRanta. Then afterwards, the Palette Management happy hour, I went back to my hotel and just answered some work emails for an hour and a half and showered because I was in my suit and it's 85 degrees here. It was very hot. So I was like flop sweating, not to get too graphic under that. So, and I was one of the few people that went back and changed. So everyone was still in like suits, dressed to the nines. I show up to the happy hour, like short sleeve collared shirt. But it was great. Palette's doing really cool work with a lot of people who are talking about things like politics, which is awesome. Then afterwards, I had a great dinner with a lot of friends. I was sitting next to Jim Louderback, who's the former president of VidCon, someone I've known for a long time. We got to chat. There's a bunch of finance influencers there. That was put on by Kajabi. So got to learn more about Kajabi. I already know a lot about Kajabi. I love Kajabi, but they were doing really cool digital courses with creators. They paid out billions. It's awesome. Got back around, midnight here. I was one of the first to leave the dinner, and I got back at midnight. And and then woke up at 7 a.m. this morning to my alarm and shut my alarm off and slept for another 2 hours because I really needed to process after yesterday. So hope that gave some more insight into what happened at the Creator Economy Conference. I'm not sure if I'm going to be invited back in future years because I imagine they're going to want to invite a lot of different people year over year, but I do feel quite confident they're going to do this again because all of the press that came out about it was really positive. I even looked at some of the partisan news things, and the biggest insult they had for us is we all had our cameras out the entire time, and it's like, yeah, we're creator economy people, right? But I think that like the president enjoyed it. I think the staff enjoyed it. I do feel like everyone got a lot out of it. So with great power comes great responsibility. We'll see you at next year's.